but then we conflate it and make it seem like we're talking about open borders and the left using Black people as a tool to get what they want. So let's not conflate. Let's just talk about what you just talked about. I'm all about that. That's all I've been talking about. And I believe that is a winning message. Conflating, talking about Martin King, why didn't we talk about Martin Luther King Jr. last year? Why do we have to talk about Martin Luther King Jr. being a bad guy, which, again, I'm not here to defend whether he was a bad guy or not. Why do we have to talk about that right now and then pretend we're talking about open borders? Let's just talk about open borders. Let's just talk about how the left has manipulated the Black community for well over 60 plus years now to get what they want. And we are broken, and bruised as a Black community as a result of it. Let's have that conversation.
Well, they might be, and let's take they out of it, Jason Whitlock, and I'll speculate Vince Ellison, I'll speculate Virgil Walker and others. They might be arguing, like, once you go down that rabbit hole of, like, how did we get to open borders, and how did we get to people sitting on TV saying, hey, if you're against open borders, you're a racist. How did we get here? And so the further and further you go down that rabbit hole, the next thing you know, you might be looking dead in the face of Martin Luther King. And be like, well, dang, down this rabbit hole, it takes me right to MLK and the civil rights movement. And we may be at a time where people are ready to have that conversation.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so.
You don't think people are ready to have that conversation?
About Martin Luther King Jr.? Absolutely not. Ain't nobody talking about Martin Luther King Jr. What we're talking about is these inflation. We're talking about the open borders. We're talking about police officers not being allowed to do their jobs. We're talking about, my son is 17, getting ready to turn 18 this Friday. My baby is going to have to sign up for, selective service. And now I also know we have a 25% deficit in our military enrollment. So where are we going to find all of these young, able bodies to go out here and fight wars and more wars all across this world? We're going to start drafting young boys. So these are the conversations I think we want to talk about transgenderism and the fact that there are only two genders and everything else is a mental health disorder waiting for a good psychiatrist to sit down and have a conversation. I think we want to talk about that. I think we want to talk about why is it that we have so many of our young people. I mean, we're in the throes of a mental health crisis among our young people right now. And I mean, I think these are the things. Fentanyl, 100,000 Americans dying every single year as a direct result of fentanyl, and the overwhelming majority of it comes through these open borders. I think those are the messages. Those are the things people are talking about. How do I know that? Because I actually work at the grassroots level, and I am talking to people all across the nation. Last night, I did a Zoom call with 159 of the staunchest activists all across the state of Pennsylvania. And let me tell you, no one mentioned Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. being a bad guy. People were talking about a whole lot of other issues. And so that is my message. I have no malice against anyone. I love capitalism. If you want to do clickbait and monetize these stories because you think you're going to get greater impressions, and as a result, you're going to get a greater payout, I'm okay with all of that. What I'm saying is, can we just focus for a moment, and can we actually create a message and make sure that we're using these platforms that have 6, 7, 8, 10 million, 175 million people on Twitter? Every post they put out is about 2 million on average, and they're putting out maybe 10 posts a day. And I'm watching how mainstream media is using these little clips, like just recently, maybe a couple of days ago, again, on Charlie Kirk's show. Charlie, got nothing against you. Love what you're doing. However, there was a young man who, dressed in military fatigue, went and set himself on fire in front of the Israeli embassy in New York. And as I'm watching this young man, my heart is just like, oh my God, our young people, mental health issues. But on this particular episode of Charlie Kirk, one of the people who's on his show said people were commenting. He was commenting on how people were saying to the young man who set himself on fire, rest in power. But apparently that's a catchphrase you're only supposed to use for Black people. I don't know. But he was like, hey, but he did eventually turn Black. So he did become a Black person eventually because he burned to a dark crisp, I guess. That's what I'm saying. That's stupid. And it's useless. And to listen to these particular people snickering, it's just, you can have the conversation. I find it to be stupid. I find it to not be advantageous in helping us to win come November.